Oh,
Nice shots, good cover usage.
thank you. Oh no! Oh well.
All right.
Bad try. Okay.
Some good shots there. I think overall, we just need to be going for that flank a little bit faster, as a
Right.
lot of time we spent a lot of the first half of the game, or like this first part of the defense, right? Just shooting at tanks all the time. We talked about target priority before, right?
Yes, I
Yep.
believe so.
Just making sure we're not shooting at tanks. We're trying to get on DPS and supports, right? So
Right.
to do that, we go on off angles and we just don't sit inside of our team all the time, and then that allows us to go on the better things and easier things to kill. Here we probably should be like top left, right on the rafters. That'd be a really good spot to be, where it gives us good visibility as well as high ground advantage. Okay. Unless Mercy's low or your whole team's focusing her, don't really want to focus on Valking Mercy. It's gonna be very, very difficult to kill her.
All right.
Right, she has increased movement speed, self healing, nice shots. Okay, so far mechanics are looking really nice. Right now we could probably be going like top left. We can get off a high noon from there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Very,
Oh,
very nice. Consider not dropping from the high ground, though. That way you're not putting yourself
yeah.
in a super risky out of position, where it becomes very difficult or very easy to kill you, right? So if we stick up in the high
Right.
ground, that means it's very safe for us. Just want to keep good positioning. So far, mechanics have looked fantastic. It's just I think maybe positioning is one that needs to be worked on, as well as some
Mm-hmm.
awareness and game sense. But ability usage looks fine. Ultimate usage is good there. Good shots. Almost no problem with mechanics so far.
Ah, so close. Okay. Here's bump.
Very nice. Very, very nice. If you know that you hit the first shot, you can also just go. Oh,
Dang it.
make
That's
sure
my
that,
fault. Sorry.
yeah, just take the opportunity when you see that you have some acquired already. On top of that, make sure that when you're high nooning, you have two kind of different ways that you can high noon. Whether it's if it's a surprise advantage or if you have sufficient of protection. There, it
Okay.
wasn't a surprise advantage because we kind of came head on to them, right?
Right.
And it also we didn't have any protection because we were out in the open. Okay, pay attention to where your team's at when you're coming out of spawn, right? We can see through walls as
Mm-hmm.
well as watch kill feed and where people are, because we kind of walked really, really far ahead of our team there. We could have just waited for a whole team to group up, right? So back to high noon usage, right? Remember that you need one or the other a lot of the times. Cover or sorry, protection, as in like a shield or team support, or we need something else such as surprise advantage. You want to give me the codes now?
Yep. Sorry.
Yep,
How did I leave
you're good.
the group? let's see. There was this one, I think. No, wait. It was this one, I believe.
Right? I can just. Oh, you gotta share
Oh,
the code.
yeah.
Now let me just copy that real quick then.
Or should I? You probably could have seen it. I don't
Yeah,
know. I didn't look
it's
up.
fine. All right, then I'll stream to you, and you can also stop your stream as well.
Okay.
All right. What was the other? I can't remember what I was saying beforehand. Oh yeah, when you flash somebody, if you already hit the first headshot or the first shot, you probably don't need to go for a right click because it becomes it becomes super easy to just hit up a follow up single shot, right? So we're at 8 seconds right now on that was Nepal. Um, so like if you hit the first shot before you even flash them, then right clicking is just going to waste time as well as just ammo really,
Okay.
because if you shoot someone, right, either whether it be a body shot or a headshot, right, we hit a body shot, we flash, we can hit a headshot, and that just becomes a lot easier, and we're not forced to go through the entire right click animation as well as the reload animation, right, which just basically takes a whole lot of unnecessary time. Or if we hit a headshot, then we can just body shot really easily. But if we hit the first shot before we go for the flashbang, then we don't need to end up following it up with the right click. In general, you want to try to go for headshots into flashbangs in besides a few situations. So if they have like their backs turned to you sometimes, because a lot of characters kind of have a hunch over their backs, or you can't really see their heads too well. Like for example, like we could do this right where from behind can't really get the Reinhardt's head. So from here, there's
Right.
no point in shooting him when we could just flash right click him, right, and do the exact same thing, right click him again. So if you're behind somebody, that becomes a little bit easier. When you're right in on top of somebody, this is also more acceptable because it's a lot harder to flick up and hit a headshot from here than it is to just right click them when you're right inside of them, right? The other time is when it's like a surprise advantage, right? So or sorry, not a surprise advantage, when it's like a surprise that you're going for the flash. So let's say someone sneaks up behind us and we just go like do a spin around and a right click. We don't have the time to set up the headshot, right? Because it's a panic, right? We don't have the time. When you're expecting it, like when we fully expect to be going for this flashbang because we know someone's on the left, we're ready to flash him, then we can be basically pre-aiming for the head level here and hit that flash headshots very simply and easily because we're already ready for it, right? But when you're not ready for it, then you might want to go for right clicks a bit more. All right. And that's kind of when you should be right clicking versus just left clicking. Now on to this is Nepal, right?
Quick question. So, like, say you have one bullet in your weapon and, like, you right click and it's a headshot. Does it do the same damage as, like, a left click headshot or
No, it does
no?
not.
Yeah, yeah, I didn't think so. Okay.
Alrighty. Otherwise, right click would be much better. Like
Right.
if you could right click and do the same amount of damage as a left click, right click would be used a lot more often. But
Oh, yeah.
it's a lower amount of damage. All right. So far, what we were looking with the other game, strengths weaknesses wise, was mechanics were looking pretty high. All right, here we probably should not be going and trying to hunt down the ball, as ball's not a target we should be prioritizing. Um, so you said we talked about that. Do you remember why we shouldn't be focusing on tanks?
Uh, I can't remember the exact reason, but I do know that like it would like be easier to just take out like the squishy players
Hmm.
first or
Yep.
whatever.
Tanks have
Uh,
2 to 3 times the health. Tanks have
yeah.
ball has movement and shields. Monkey has bubble, right? They have shields and stuff like that. On top of that, DPS and supports just do more statistical output. Tanks, like they are important characters, but they create space for the other roles. Whereas damage do the damage, DPS do the damage, and supports do the healing, right? So they are the ones who do the statistical output, and therefore we want to go for them. So here at this very beginning, it just means that we don't want to focus ball too much and try hunting them down and spend too much time on that when we could be going for more important targets that are going to be a lot easier to kill. And then that's pretty much it to start off here. Okay. Have we talked about McCree's range before? Just to clarify, we've gone over McCree. Yeah, we went over McCree last time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So did we go over his range?
Yes, I believe we
Yep.
did. That I'm just gonna say it now. That's like not a good like distance or whatever. Like I should be closer. So
Exactly, right. So we just want to make sure that we're putting ourselves at a closer distance, which would just
yeah,
mean like being a little bit not so far sitting in the back, right?
that's a lot of fall off damage.
Mhm. Yep. The other thing here that we want to be looking at is team compositions and being aware of team compositions. So the first thing that we should be doing every single game is taking a look at our team comp, and then the second thing we're doing is taking a look at the enemy team comp. Here, the thing that we want to be looking at is taking a look at their team comp. What composition is the enemy team on?
Uh, a a
Yep,
dive-ish.
exactly, right. They're on a dive comp, and therefore, if we isolate ourselves, which is what we're doing right now, that means that we're not able to get healed, like specifically by characters like Mercy, and we're therefore going to be a lot easier to kill and get dove. And on top of that, it's also going to be a lot worse off for characters like Mercy, who is not going to have additional protection from us doing damage and flashing them, right? So when we know that we're up against the dives, team comp dictates playstyle. So we're going to be changing our playstyle up against different compositions. When we're up against a dive, we want to make sure that instead of going off on our own, that we're sticking inside of our team and we're sticking on top of our Mercy and our Reaper, right? And we're not running off on our own here, right? If we were up against a brawl composition or a spam composition, then this would be completely fine of what we're doing here because we're taking a good wide angle where we can shoot and see a lot of things. But because of the comp that we're up against, we want to make sure that we're with our team. So right here, just a little bit out of position, right, because of all the things we talked about there. Okay. Just we're not accomplishing much for basically the three things here. Just the range we're playing at, the targets we're focusing, and the fact that we're not with our team, right? We weren't with our team to start off, but those are two things here. It's just positioning and target focus here, or target priority is the things we're struggling with most.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, aim here looks a little bit shaky. How
Right.
old was this game in comparison? So
Yeah,
it's like
that's
3
what I
days
was
ago.
looking at. Around 3 days ago, I recently, and I think that's why my aim wasn't
Hmm.
good because like I had just switched my sensitivity, so I was still
Yeah.
getting used to it.
All right.
Uh, yeah.
Yeah, completely understandable. Plus, like you were still practicing on the things we talked about, so we're not we won't. Here looks like our aim's definitely much shakier than when we were playing with in the last game we were in. So
Mm-hmm.
seeing that in the last game, aim was not really a problem at all. We're not going to really
Right.
focus too much on us hitting shots, more so though where we're standing, which characters are we shooting at, right, are going to be more of what we're going to be looking at particularly. Okay. Make sure you're looking to use your flashbang. Right,
Right.
just
Oh.
very nice. Just look to use it a little bit earlier because that would allow your team to shoot them and follow up with it. Probably look to high noon. Okay, so like we
Right.
talked about, so you went to high noon. It kind of so those are the two scenarios that allow you to get away with a high noon, right? When you have protection or when you uh, are take a surprise angle, right? From here we would get both. So we have beat online, which means that we pretty much don't die no matter what. Okay, we have walls right next to us, which means that unless we kind of peek really wide here, we can like get out of LOS of like the McCree, for example, right? And nobody can shoot at us, and we can charge up a shot on the Lucio, Mercy, and Monkey, right? And then on top of all that, they're really out in the open, right? The other thing that we're looking for, this isn't going to help us survive, but it is going to help us get off an effective high noon, is when
Right.
the characters are not near any cover, right? If we high nooned right here, where's Monkey going to go? Right?
Right. Nowhere.
Where's Mercy gonna go? Where's Lucio gonna go? Where's Genji gonna go? Where's even McCree, right? If we like peek a little bit wide here, literally no members on their team are anywhere near cover, which we've discussed in the past to be cover is good positioning, absence of cover is bad positioning. When none of them are near cover, High Noon is a free ultimate. Here we don't end up using it, but that's fine because they used 3 other ults and we actually killed everything. So that's fine. That's an example of a good situation where High Noon would be applicable, where High Noon would be safe to go for, but it's fine because we ended up using 3 other ults and winning the fight anyways. And when you're trying to follow up on a shot really fast, you can roll to follow up faster, right? Roll gives you a faster reload than your actual reload animation, so it's going to allow you to capitalize and start shooting at the Genji even faster after you run out of ammo here. So just get into the habit of reloading. Right here, we don't have to be kind of crouching when we see that we're at a significant advantage, right? Take a look at this. It's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 versus 2, right? So we don't have to be kind of hiding here when we have a very clear, big advantage and our whole team's up here with us. Just go in aggressive, push aggressive when you see that you're winning. Okay. This probably is, I would imagine, doesn't do much for us because this is another part of identifying the comp that we're up against. We talked about like when we want to be focusing the squishy targets, and to do that in a lot of different compositions, we have to go on off angles. So go on a different angle that's away from our team, because we have to get around shields and get around tanks. But if we look at the comp that they're on ball hog. What do we
Right.
need to get around, right? They don't have any shields. Ball's not going to even be with their team most of the time, so we don't really have anything to get around. So going on this does nothing but just isolate ourselves, right, away from our whole team. It makes us easier to get dove and caught out, and also just wastes a lot of time because it's taking a very large amount of time outside of the fight. So instead, when we see that we're up against this particular composition, we're changing how we're playing to be more team focused. We're sitting with our team the whole time, and we're just mowing them down on the front line, right? Which is different because you would be playing this differently if they were on something different. Look to reload, right? Good job. So far, not too bad in the reload category. Look for your flashbang. There's a lot of times where we have people right on top of us and we don't really look for a flashbang. So make sure we're doing that because it is a pretty fast cooldown and you're going to get it pretty frequently. Here we could have flashbanged Hog at any point and just made this a faster kill. When we kill things faster, this does multiple things for us. This means that Hog has less time to heal, he has less time to get away, he has less time to get to just escape, and that means that we secure the kill and he doesn't have a chance of staying alive, right? The other thing this does is when we kill him faster, this means we can get back to the fight and start killing other things and instead of wasting time on Hog. Here we spend a lot of time just shooting a Hog and he heals himself, right? And this could have gone faster and given him not let him kill Mercy. Had we gone for the flash, right, it would have saved Mercy. So we just want to make sure we're using our flashbang ability and we're not holding on to that. When people are right on top of you, so we're at 302. Okay. When we're looking for a flashbang, right, and somebody's right on top of us, we want to make sure that we're flashing at the floor, right? We're not flashing past the person because flashbang can go past people, like you can see it here. We can throw it past and it's not going to do anything. And so when we're right inside of somebody, right, we want to throw the flashbang down so that it hits the floor and it doesn't go past, so that we can follow up pretty easily. Without it just sailing past the person. Whereas on the Genji, we ended up having it sail past them, right? So we just want to pay attention to where is the person positioned because you can throw flashbang too far. Okay, going back to Nepal. Okay, the other thing is we just want to make sure we're using our ultimate a little bit faster here. This is fight 2 that we have not used our ult, so we just want to be paying attention to that a little bit. Okay, good job using your flash. Good high noon. The other good thing, this one's like a little bit more niche, but it can be used, is when you're really far away from people, because this gives you more survivability as well, puts you out of range of a lot of abilities as well as shots. Like if we take a look at their team comp, we're almost certainly going to get away with this because they don't really have anything to focus us, right? So this is a really, really good high noon. Good job there. We were well paced. We used it when they're all out in the open. You just want to make sure we're looking for high noon a little bit more because we did go 2 fights without using it. And if we had used it, let's say the first fight, now that's twice as many high noons we're getting in. And then that means on top of it that we're just getting more ults that aren't used don't get value, so we get more value when we use them. We win more fights, right? In the last fight, we potentially could have won had we used high noon. On top of all of that, just make sure you're looking to use high noon early in fights like we do here. When you use it earlier in the fight, it means that you don't have a chance to lose the fight. So for example, in the last fight, if we had used high noon early and gotten picks with it, that means that we have an advantage and we're less likely to lose. Obviously you don't want to use your high noon in a fight that you lost, right? So if we just end up holding on to high noon for too long, we just might end up losing the fight and being forced to hold on to it, right? So we want to use high noon early in fights. They also get more value when they're used early. In general here, just good usage of it. It looks like so far, if we're just looking at strengths and weaknesses, we're doing good in a lot of different areas. It's just inconsistency, which is going to be a big, big thing, of course, when it comes to getting better. Is we're just like ability usage on McCree isn't usually too important, but there are a lot of consistency things we need to get used to with it, right? Just using it more. Ultimate wise, just we're really good usage there. We just want to be using it more often. All right. Besides that, really, really great mechanics, especially in the last game I saw you in. We just want to make sure that we're keeping that up, and then we're focusing the right targets, and then positioning and awareness is where we're getting maybe not awareness so much. I need to see more of awareness. That's usually the slowest thing to identify, but positioning so far is also another big one that just needs to get worked on. Okay, make sure you're shooting at them, not just tracking them.
Yeah, I don't know why I didn't shoot at him. Uh, I guess I zoned out or something. I don't know.
you know, again, we're kind of putting ourselves at a pretty far distance here. Again, on our own, right? So bad positioning because we're not with our team, which our team is on point, right? We're also putting ourselves really, really far away from the enemy team, which means that we're going to be doing less damage and almost probably closer to like half damage from this distance. All right, so we just want to make sure that we're putting ourselves closer to our team, closer to the fight. Um, it seems like we end up playing a little bit passive in these fights that we're very clearly winning. This has happened like 3 times now, so I'm just gonna reiterate this. Have we talked about watching kill feed, right? No.
I believe I guess we never really went in depth on
Mhm.
the subject, but like we have talked about like paying attention to the kill feed, knowing
Mhm.
like what fights we've won and like what fights we've lost, and
Mhm.
when to like fall back or whatever and group up with our team. So
Yeah, that's
yeah, but we never really went. Sorry for cutting you off, but we never really went like too in depth on it, I
yeah.
guess.
Well, that's really the basics of it. Is
Yeah.
well, I guess so we can just reiterate that real quick. When you are up 1 to 2 people, that is an advantage. Therefore, you can afford to play more aggressive because they have less people to shoot at you, less people to heal, less people to tank. Okay, they have less players, which means you can get away with more. When they're down, or when you are up, right, 2 to 3, that is where you have won the fight. At that point, you don't want to use ults. You also want to be playing super aggressive. Now, this has happened multiple times so far where we have won fights and it's like a 6v2, yet we still play super passive. We just kind of sit around. So why you want to get super aggressive is so that you can go and secure stagger kills. So for example, the ball here never died because we kind of sat back and our team let him get out. And that means that this is a potential kill we could have secured and staggered, but we just didn't. Are you familiar with the term stagger?
Yes,
Yep.
yes, I am.
So here we could have definitely staggered him, but we didn't because we didn't play aggressive. So we just want to make sure we're getting aggressive when we see that we've won a fight, so we can get staggers on the enemy team and that therefore waste their time and make them make mistakes. Then the other thing is just it goes the opposite way too. Down 1 to 2 is a disadvantage. We play more passive. Down 2 to 3 is a loss. We don't use ults and we get out or we die. Right, and that's just the basics. It's just been a lot of passive playing so far is a big thing. Okay, so like even here, like in this fight, we don't really participate or do much because we're sitting really, really far back. We we're not getting in anybody's faces. Like for example, when the Brig was top left here, we maybe like if we saw that she's by herself, we could maybe like roll at her with a flashbang and just right click her to death, right? Just becomes a very easy kill because she's off on her own and you can maybe get the kill on her easier than she can get the kill on you. We just didn't really seem like we didn't really participate much in this fight, and that's where you get into the dilemma when it comes to playing in Overwatch, right? You need to of course you need to stay alive, right? But if you play too passive and you play too survivable, you just don't get value. So an example of this would be like we could stay in spawn and never die once, but we're not participating, we're not doing anything. So you have to find the fine line between productivity and survivability of staying alive but then also doing things. When we're playing too passive, it means that we're not accomplishing much here, but it also means we'll stay alive a little bit more. Here we want to make sure that we're doing things while also staying alive, which means that you can do that, accomplish that by respecting cover usage, by being aware of your environment, right? That's how you end up being able to be aggressive and do things, but then also stay alive. But here, so far in this gameplay, it just looks like we're playing really, really passive when we should be playing a little bit more aggressive. And just to clarify here, so far, if we were to put this on a scale with saying 100% is insanely aggressive, 0 is playing it too passive and sitting in spawn, we're sitting more like a 30-ish right range, where I'm not telling you to dial it up to 100 because that would be wrong as well. That'd be taking it the completely opposite direction and getting too aggressive. I'm just saying to dial it up to 50 and try to even it out a bit because we're just playing a little too passive. That all make sense?
Yes, sir.
All right. So here we end up losing the fight. It's unfortunate. We also when did we get High Noon there? Okay, so we didn't get High Noon until the very end. All right, and then that's a lost fight. It also looks like we've been doing this quite a bit. We did this twice so far, and just make sure it's a good, really, really good habit to get into to just be walking out of spawn at the very beginning. So like once the doors open, you want to be standing right here so that the second they open, you're already walking out of spawn, and you don't want to have downtime or AFK time because that's just giving the enemy team an advantage. Like for example here, this could potentially, like right there, what you do here could potentially lose the game for you because you come at, let's just do a hypothetical here, your team comes into the fight, you're lagging behind by an extra 10 seconds, so therefore it's a 5v6. We discussed this is a disadvantage. So because they're at a disadvantage, they end up losing the first fight. This sets the enemy team up at at an ultimate advantage. So now they have more ultimates because they killed more things, right? And they got more damage in. So they have more ults now. and that means that they're able to snowball the whole map. On top of all of this, your team is now getting upset because obviously they just lost this first round, and then they also just lost this next fight, so they're poor in
Mhm.
spirits, and then they also see that you're AFK, so that even worsens team morale and spirits. So all this bad habit of sitting in spawn, which I've seen us do twice so far, which completely fine if there's something like IRL happening, like that's
Mhm.
real important. But it's just a good habit to try to get out of spawn, because this could potentially just lose the game right off of this mistakes. Some
Right.
mistakes are more important than other mistakes, and something like this is a pretty big mistake, because I would imagine that the fight's gonna pretty much happen before we even get there. Like, let's watch. I guarantee at least one person dies before we make it to the fight. Okay, now our team didn't do anything, so nope, I was wrong. Guarantee is unfortunately retracted. But they also just capped the point basically as we get the point, right? We were
Right.
we
So.
were entire like 30 seconds late, which just means that they already have an initial advantage here. They have better positioning. Make sure that again we're not isolating ourselves and putting ourselves like super far away from our team, especially when we're low. Make sure that when we see we get shot here, right? We take damage. Make sure as soon as you take this damage, that we're requesting healing from our supports so they can get like break it, throw a pack on us, or we need to be seeking out healing by like rolling over to our supports or grabbing
Mhm.
the health pack underneath us. We just need to be paying attention to our health, right? And then actively seeking healing, which we do not here. We kind of back off, which there's no health pack up top here. As a general rule of thumb, there's never going to ever be health packs up on high grounds. That's just not a thing in Overwatch. So we just want to make sure we're actively seeking out health here, so we're not sitting at 100 HP, which gets us killed. Press I need healing. Look to go to your team. Look to flash at the ground. Up against a Genji, this is
Mhm.
especially important, because not only does it mean that when he's on top of you it gets him, but it also means that he can't deflect it because it explodes in, like, so for example, let's say we throw it right at the ground here. He gets flashed by that, and because he can't deflect it, right? It's just not in
Mhm.
his deflect radius, so just make sure we're flashing the ground when we're up against him. And make sure you're using your roll as you're coming out of spawn. This will speed up your movement speed and get you back faster. It's a 6-second cooldown, so you can use like 2 as you're walking back and still have it as you're reaching the fight. And now your team should not be engaging, but now you have 5 people here, so it's fine. Unfortunate. New sensitivity. Alright, so we caught it back. Skippity skip skip. Nice crouching. Make sure we request healing. Oh, or we got the health pack, really good. Did you
I
see?
already knew the soldier was going to chase me, so I was running away.
Yeah. Try to get behind that cover a little bit faster here. Also, you can use your. Do you have this? Yeah. Just look to. You can look to dodge out his helix. Look to get behind cover a little bit faster.
Mhm.
You are kind of outmatched in this matchup because of a few different reasons. First off, he has helix. Second off, he is outside of. He has self healing, right, which is popped, and then also he's outside of your range with flashbang, so he beats you out in a bunch of different ways here, so he just has the advantage
Right.
in this duel. um when you know that you have a disadvantage in a duel, do not look to take the duel, right? Just back
Right.
out. Don't try to take it, because the longer we stay here, the more likely we are to die. Whereas if we back out immediately, we don't get hit with this helix, and now we're half HP rather than 1 HP, right? So
Right.
now this means he's going to be able to if he pushes us here, we're probably going to die. Yeah, the other thing there you can potentially try to go for is just like get super like roll straight up into his face and with a like preemptive flashbang, right? It's just
Okay.
predict where he's at, flashbang him. I would probably say that that's the only way you'd be able to get out there, because it's very unlikely that you're gonna be able to outrun his sprinting, right? But if
Right.
we can roll up and surprise flashbang him because we're just getting, he doesn't expect us to get that aggressive when we're 1 HP, then that's how we can end up winning that. Other than that, just in that situation as well, it might not be too much of a good idea to come up all the way over here unless we're waiting for him to peek us. Like, for example, if we hid over here and waited for him to come and then just like flash right clicked him or something like that, that'd be a pretty good idea. But because we peeked, it just became a bad idea. And now look at how far back you have to walk through this open area where there's no cover at all, right? So this is just a very high risk, high reward play to go for, and we just have to acknowledge that this is very risky play because we have to back up through such a wide open space if we do decide to get out there, right? Yeah, right now we want to be setting up for the next fight, not just kind of sitting here. Yep, exactly, rotating. Rotation just comes slightly late there. Very nice. Nice shot. Unfortunate. I think we reacted a little bit late to that. We like kind of looked over it a second late there. Just make sure keeping up the audio awareness. Oh, and I AFK'd there for a second. All right. So first round, they probably say the biggest thing was that we were too passive. Second round, they probably say the biggest thing so far is that we're dying quite a bit, and where we just have very low survivability. When we're not staying alive, you can't really do much, right? So we're slightly opposite problems, but it's still, just want to look to get consistent in both of those areas. Because so far this round, we've just been in a lot of unfortunate spots and died quite a bit. Pay attention to our health bar and request. Okay, we just pressed I need healing, so just make sure we're pressing that a couple more times. Because you see immediately Baptiste looks over at us as soon as we press it. So you just make sure we're looking to press that a little bit more often.
Do you know any like good McCree players there are on like YouTube that I could just like watch or learn from or something?
Wanted OW is a really good one. Um,
Okay.
if you're looking for like super old McCree gameplay, go for Aimbot Calvin, but he's like OG, but that's like gonna be not current meta stuff. But I'd probably say Wanted is probably gonna be the best guy you're looking for. Because he's a pretty well known streamer for McCree. I don't know if there's any other. I don't know if I know any other McCree players off the top of my head, but I definitely say check out Wanted.
Yeah, I'm subscribed to Wanted. I was
Mm,
just wondering if there were like other McCrees or something. But yeah,
yeah.
Wanted is a good player, so I'll definitely look into like reviewing and learning from his gameplay.
Yeah, I don't think that there are too many other well-known McCree players out there. Maybe like a little bit of like you can just look at most just um general DPS players will or hit scan players will play McCree, but he's a McCree specialist. But like J3 will play McCree once in a while. You'll see Samito play McCree once in a while. Right? You have a bunch of high ranked DPS players who'll just like flex over to McCree. But Wanted is the only one I know of who's a specialist on McCree.
Okay.
Okay. Make sure that we're respecting cover usage, and here instead of rolling out to the left, it'd probably be a really good idea if we rolled out behind to our team. Here we kind of isolated ourselves from our team, made it a lot easier for us to get dove and shot at. So just a pretty out of position play here. On top of that, make sure you're requesting healing when we're low and we need assistance. Again, we're just not really relying on any team support. All right. Okay, so here we're coming out of spawn. Nope, we go back in swap. Okay, we go back in AFK again.
Yeah, I was looking for Symmetra, but I couldn't find her on time, so I was like, you know what?
Yep.
I'm already behind, so I might as well just run.
Yep.
Try it.
It's a good just make sure that us trying to look for a character is coming in between the round. If the round has started, you're probably going to be much better off on a bad character than coming out of spawn 20 seconds late, right? Just make the decision to come out of spawn. Don't I probably say there's never going to be a situation where sitting in spawn at the very beginning of a game is going to be beneficial or for you, unless it's like a insanely one-dimensional meta, which we have not had for a while, where it's a very hard meta and you can't run anything else. Here Symmetra is definitely not a must pick, and you're worse off coming out 20 seconds late than if we're, because again, so it's here no one's died, but on both points you can see, look at the positioning difference, right? They have
Yeah.
control over point. They have Symmetra TP things up. They have high ground advantage. We're all coming in super late. We're waltzing around in on this side. We're trying to take a little bit of high ground, but we just there's a big positional difference, and that first off comes to the fact that they have a TP up, right? But then the other thing just might come, especially on they had this also on the last round, which could come from the fact that our team's waiting for us. But they also have a Lucio as well, so they're just getting there really fast. We just want to make sure we're with them. Nice kill. Almost looked accidental there, but just make sure that the first thing we're shooting at isn't Reinhardt, right? We talked about target priority. Wrong target priority here. We just going. We shot like 4 shots into Ryan and then 1 shot on Lucio, and you can see how fast Lucio died in comparison to the Reinhardt, who is still full HP, right? So we just want to make sure that we're not just pumping shot after shot into the wrong target, because then those shots don't do as much, right? So we just want to be shooting at the right thing. Again, Reinhardt. Yeah, we're coming around out of range. We've done that a couple times. Just make sure you're paying attention to the range of your flashbang. It does have a limit to how far it can go, so try to get used to that range. Flash, I think so far flashes and rolls have been slightly inconsistent of how we've been using them, so that it is something to work on. Okay. Alright, we got it. Look to retake high ground. We always try to take best positioning possible after every single fight. Or we may be waiting, trying to get like a surprise flash off, or okay, now we're
I
rotating up
have
high.
no idea what I was
Alright.
doing.
Rotation's coming super late here, so again, make sure we're doing this right after the fight ends, because we're doing this right as the fight's beginning, which means that now we're going to be outside of the fight for a really long time here, or rotating up to high ground. Make sure you're using your roll to do it faster, right? So you're traveling faster. Use it for mobility. In general, make sure that you're not rotating in the middle of fights, because that's just putting you outside of the fight. It means that you have more time where the enemy team is shooting at stuff and you're not. Okay, we see them going right side here. Try to go like above them. That's where we should be looking to go. This just again a delayed. And then in this time that we're rotating, our whole team's dead. Right, it's just very delayed with our rotations and where we're going. So you just want to make sure we're getting into the habit. Oh, whoops! I didn't mean to skip there. We're getting into the habit of making these rotations faster. Okay, yep. This is fine to be sitting here as long as we don't get caught out. Honestly, this could actually be really beneficial for us. You could pop out and get one of them. Just watch where your team's at. Oh, Briggs looking for us. Alright, we should be now that we see our teams ready. We should be looking for the go in the soldier. Very. Oh,
And then I messed it up. Oh my
yep.
gosh.
The other time you can be going. So if you're going for someone on the side angle, Um, first off, here when you're coming in at the on the soldier, there's no reason to not be shooting at him because you're gonna be flashing him anyways in a second, right? You saw how like in the training range I was showing you how you can shoot, flash, shoot, right? And that makes for
Yeah.
a much better combo and it secures the kill a lot easier. Here, the other thing to keep in mind is that when you flash somebody, most characters in the game have this super annoying head bob where look at Soldier, he's kind of doing a backflip here where his head
Yeah.
goes backwards. You just need to be aware of that because he's going backwards, so be prepared. On top of that, just make sure we have our crosshair in the right spot and we're keeping it at head level. Here we don't have our crosshair at his head level. We're kind of not aiming in the right spot, right? We're rolling up to him and look at where our crosshair's at, right? We're kind of not aiming at the right spot here. And then on top of that, if you're coming in on the side or from behind, it just might honestly be better that you just go for the right click. Just secures the kill. You in this situation, you don't need any fast ammo. If anything, you could probably right click them and then go immediately into like a high noon here. Because they're all in the open again, and it's a surprise angle, right? An advantage, and none of these guys are gonna be able to melt you fast enough before you get a pick. So here, just probably want to go for the right click. No reason to go for the headshots. Unfortunate whiffs. Just make sure putting a lot of concentration in when you're going for it. Like we had an entire like 10 seconds to just plan that out in our head, visualize how we're gonna do it, and then get it off appropriately. It looks like we struggle a lot going for the follow-up shot on the flash targets. Just make sure you're practicing that. You can practice that in game, in free-for-alls, in anything while you're warming up. Just make sure we're putting practice into it because that's a skill that's worth practicing because it's going to be useful a lot of the times. Like if you can get a left click off on somebody, it's going to be more valuable off than going for a right click, except for the certain scenarios that we were talking about. And then that allows her to get away, right, and means that we don't stagger her. Here we want to make sure we're going for high noon. This is now the second. This if we don't use it here, this is gonna be the third fight that we're holding on to it. So we just want to make sure we're using it. Alright, at what point does he beat here? Alright. So problem with this high noon, right? We do not have protection, so protection would mean getting a bubble, protection would mean getting a shield, so we could be literally sitting right here, right, behind our tanks, and this would be a perfectly fine high noon, right? But we're up on the high ground where we don't have shields, we don't have protection, and this is also not a surprise advantage because we're coming at the one angle where it's very visible, and a surprise advantage would be if we're coming from the right, the left, behind, but when we're coming from the front, it means that all they have to do to look at us is they're looking over here, and they be high noon, and it's very little adjustment to look top left. It's a lot bigger of an adjustment to go all the way over here, and it means that we have more time to charge up our ultimate, more time to get people to not see us. But here we have Soldier who's already looking at us, right? Genji who's probably about have people about to look at us in a second here, right? Genji looks at us, right? Lucio's not looking at us, right? So we just have people looking at us, which means that Soldier just instant melts us, right? So we just want to make sure we're respecting those rules. Also, just look with your high noon to use it more often and look to use it actively more often at the very beginning of fights, not hold on to it, because again, we did hold on to it for 2 other fights in front of this one. Use your roll coming out of spawn. Alright, and then we'll just finish this up real quick, I guess, here, and then we'll move on. Okay, good target priority there, and we got a kill pretty easily. Oh, why is Cortana opened up for some reason? Nice shots. Very, very nice. Okay, we started to pop off there at the end. And that is game. Alright, so let's move on to the wrap-up part of the session. Alright, So we played McCree the entire time, right? Just going around the block real quick. Flash bang and roll just need a little bit of consistency work. On McCree, they're not the most powerful parts of your kit, but in general, make sure you're using them more often. Use flash bang more often when people are on top of you. Use roll as you're coming out of spawn, and just to reset your shots. Like if we're in the middle shooting at stuff and we need to be shooting faster, right? Because we ran out of ammo, right? We're still shooting at stuff. We just reload so we can keep shooting, right? Or we roll, sorry, so we can keep shooting. And flashbang, make sure you're not throwing it past people, but you're looking at the ground when they're right next to you, especially on a Genji, right? That way you can not get it deflected back in your face. High Noon, similar. It's not going to be like, on a High Noon is a very non-powerful ultimate in comparison to other ults, but it still is an ultimate, so we want to make sure we're getting value out of it, so use it more often because we're holding on to it quite a bit, so make sure we're using it frequently. And then on top of that, look to use it at the very beginning of fights. How to use it is you look to get protection or a surprise advantage, or you could even use it when you're super far away and people can't really shoot at you from that distance, right, and do effective damage. And then we also just want to make sure we're using it when people are on the open, but we did a pretty decent job of that, right? So the timing of when we used it wasn't too terrible there on the enemy. Now flashbang as well. Make sure we can flash, or we can shoot, flash, shoot, right, and then that gets us some easy kills pretty fast, right? You right click when it's a surprise flashbang and you're not planning it, or if it's from behind or from an awkward angle. Expect when you flash someone, they're gonna be moving backwards. Some characters are more extreme than others. Like Zarya is pretty extreme, where she goes like all the way backwards and she like does a backflip and bends backwards. So it becomes very difficult because she just goes all the way back there. So it just becomes very, very difficult to hit the shot, and you just want to make sure that you're expecting it and be prepared for it. And hitting a headshot when you're prepared for it is gonna be a lot easier than when you're not prepared for it, right? Now moving on, mechanics, right? Not too much of an issue. You did really, really good, especially in that first game. It looked like just in the replay you're getting used to your new sensitivity, but it really looked like your mechanics were really, really improved in the game that I was watching at the very beginning. So good job on that end. But we're gonna lump target priority into the mechanics, and target priority did need a bit of work. We want to make sure that we're not just shooting at tanks the entire time, because those are the most difficult things and lowest value things to be shooting at. We want to make sure that we're shooting at supports and DPS, specifically supports if they're pocketing DPS, right, or if they're pocketing tanks, right, because we need to kill them first. To do that, we want to make sure we're going on off angles, but we also want to make sure we're paying attention to the team compositions, which is a good segue into awareness, right? There's a lot of different things to be aware of in the game, but one of the specific things that we wanted to be aware of, especially in the first map, was team compositions. When we pay attention to the enemy team comp and they're on a dive, we want to make sure that we're sticking with our team much more often. Also, just real quick, you can't hit headshots when you're right clicking. Right, that's why you don't do any more damage. You can't hit headshots at all. Alright, now back to awareness, right? When you're up against a dive, stick with your team. That means that you can get healed and you can get supported, and you can support them with your flashbang and your health and your shooting, right? You just want to isolate yourselves from them. So swap, and on top of that, against dives, you don't really have anything to flank, right? You don't have any reason to off angle because they don't have shields or any major tanks that get in your way, like Reinhardt or Orisa or Sigma, right? They don't have anything being able to shoot at things, so you just sit on the front line and with your team. Right. Besides that, on the awareness end, make sure that you're paying attention to the enemy team, right? And just in-game awareness, where's the enemy team at? Where's our team at? Besides that, pay attention to your health bar. Besides paying attention to the health bar, I don't think that we have any problem with watching our HUD. So we do a good job watching the abilities, our ammo, our ultimate, the time bank. We don't have any problem with those. Audio awareness, just maybe a slight thing, not too much of an issue though. Just consistency. Kill feed, slight thing, just needs to get a little bit better at it, but besides that, not a big thing. Just need to, again, consistency, make sure we're doing it all the time and paying attention to kill feed and being aware of that. Right, now moving on to positioning as the final one. Make sure that we're off-angling when we need to off-angle, and that we're sticking with the team when we need to stick with them, which ties into awareness. Right. In general, make sure we're sticking next to cover, right? And we're respecting cover usage, and we're taking high grounds. And make sure you're rotating in the middle of fights, not or sorry, in between fights, not in the middle of fights, right? That's when you don't want to be rotating. So when fights are done, look to rotate to the best spot possible, which a lot of times is going to be like high grounds if it's an option, right? But if you're looking for like a high noon, maybe consider sticking with your team so you get that protection, right? Besides that, aggression, just make sure you're not playing passive and you're doing more things, right? As we played really and we didn't accomplish much. And then survivability, make sure you're trying to stay alive because you can't do anything when you're dead, right? So main points, probably would say number one is tied between a few different things. I don't think awareness is a thing, but I probably say we're tied between positioning, aggression, and survivability. Those kind of three tie at the top. Sorry, one other part of positioning as well is just remember your distance that you're playing at, right? When we're super far away from people, we don't really do a whole lot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 versus up here we can do 3 shots, right? So it's half the damage from that distance, right? So just make sure we're playing at a medium distance, right? So number one is our aggression. So making sure we're playing a little bit more aggressive, not 100% aggressive, but 50% aggressive, right? Rather than 30, right? On top of that, positioning and just staying alive and survivability. Number two, we're going to put at let's see, what are we gonna put number two at? I think I'm gonna put this one at this is where it gets hard. Number two, I'd probably say that we're gonna tie ultimate usage and ability usage, as both of those needed a bit of work. And then number three is going to be another tie for awareness and mechanics. I honestly think that awareness, mechanics, like mechanics, and on the mechanics end, where we need a lot of work with just the target priority, and that was a big one. So just that one is pretty high, but that's the only thing. Whereas in the other areas, we just have a whole lot that need to be worked on, if that makes sense. So there is a big part that needs to be worked on in mechanics, and it is just making sure we're shooting the right things, but that's the only part of mechanics that we really need to work on at all. So just make sure you're working on that. All right. Any questions about anything we've gone over?
Not that I can think of, no sir.
All right. Well, then I'm going to end the recording here.